Welcome to 6 Degrees of Wiki, a podcast where two sisters find the 6 degrees of separation between Wikipedia articles that don't seem to have anything in common. I'm Rosanna.
And I'm Nikki. Today we'll fall into a Wikipedia spiral where Rosanna has just 6 rounds to figure out how the first article could possibly be connected to the last, while learning all sorts of peculiar facts along the way. Let's get started. Last month, we went from D-Day to parapsychology. Since we have an extra Monday this month, we've invited Diana from the Happily Ever Aftermath podcast to do the guessing for us. Diana, do you want to tell us a little bit about your show?
Hello, and I am so excited to play the game. My show, Happily Ever Aftermath, is the podcast about relationships in movies and our relationships with them.
Awesome.
Thank you. And don't get scared. It's not all about rom-coms. You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised how many movies are just like, oh, I did like that couple growing up.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us. We are going to start the spiral based on your interest in inventors. I have chosen Leonardo da Vinci to start this month.
Ooh.
Are you ready to start guessing?
I'm ready.
Excellent. Round 1. Today, we were spiraling from Leonardo da Vinci to polytheism.
Whoa.
Leonardo da Vinci, as many people know, was a man who painted and invented a ton of stuff during the Renaissance. Very, very famous. Painted the Mona Lisa. Polytheism is worship in multiple gods. Diana, do you see anything that these two items have in common?
I'm going to say that because Da Vinci was a inventor and also an artist, we're going to spiral into some way of art manifesting culture and working its way to polytheism.
Ooh.
All right.
That's a much better guess than what we usually have.
Oh, okay.
We're usually like, that starts with the same letter.
Yeah, yours is a lot more thought out.
All right, let's talk about Leonardo da Vinci.
Okay.
Or his full name, Leonardo di Ser Piero da Vinci. Much harder to say. He lived from 1452 to 1519. He was an Italian polymath, so interested in a lot of different areas.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those areas were invention, painting, sculpting, architecture, science, music, math, engineering. I could go on forever. There are a ton of things that this guy did. He was just a genius. He's been called the father of Paleontology, iconology, and architecture. He's also considered one of the greatest painters ever. He's drawn designs for tanks, parachutes, solar power, which is surprising for me.
Wow.
An adding machine, wings, a steam cannon, hydraulic pumps. It's just all over the map. It's crazy. Even a version of a helicopter.
Oh.
A lot of his inventions, they didn't actually have the technology to build these things. And so since, people have tried building different things he's drawn designs for with varying levels of success. Some of them worked, some of them did not work at all.
Aw.
He's considered one of the most diversely talented individuals to have ever lived. I think he might be the guy that answers the question for me of, if you could have lunch with somebody, who would it be, alive or dead? Definitely him.
That'd be a good one.
Would he come with a translator?
Oh, there is that.
It didn't say it, but he probably spoke multiple languages.
Oh, that's right.
That's probably true.
I can totally see that.
He could write in cursive backwards.
Wow.
Which some say he did to put his journals in code. Some say he did just because he was left-handed and it made it easier to write from right to left so he wouldn't smear his lines.
Or he was just showing off, I mean, right?
Or for that, yes. But there are 13,000 pages of his notes that we have.
Wow.
So I'm guessing it took a long time to translate all of that. He painted the Mona Lisa, probably one everybody's heard of. Also The Last Supper. And the Vitruvian Man is a cultural icon. He's had patrons that were dukes, popes, even kings. He was very famous in his own time. A little history on Leonardo. He was born out of wedlock. His father was a wealthy notary and his mother was a peasant. He became an apprentice to Verrocchio. I'm not Italian. Verrocchio. There you go. And he apprenticed with him from a young age. Based on some legal trouble, we're pretty sure that he was gay. But we don't really know. He lived with a lot of companions. Huh. After his apprenticeship, he started getting a lot of religious commissions. He also built and sold beautiful items. One of them in particular was a lyre shaped like a horse's head for one of the Medicis.
Wow.
Very famous, powerful people in Florence.
Whoa.
I'm going to quote straight from the article. At this time, Leonardo wrote an oft-quoted letter describing the many marvelous and diverse things that he could achieve in the field of engineering, and informing Ludovico that he could also paint. As an aside. I'm also a great painter, just in case you wanted that. He was also really talented in military stratagems. He worked for two different very important people as a military architect and engineer, including someone for the Borgias family of the TV show, The Borgias.
Oh, okay.
Late in life, he was a great friend of King Francis I of France and ended up retiring in a house that they provided for him, and he had a pension. It took me a long time to do the math for this because there's not some straight scooty to US dollars from 1500
Weird.
to now. I'm pretty sure it was around $620,000 a year.
Whoa!
In our money. Yeah, that he got. He did pretty well. Some interesting facts about Leonardo da Vinci. He was a vegetarian. He also really liked to buy caged birds and just free them.
Aww.
My favorite fact about da Vinci, we don't really know where his remains are.
Oh.
He was famously interred in the Chapel of St. Florentine, but that was destroyed in 1802. And from there it gets really patchy. They excavated the site in 1863, and a poet, I don't know why he was part of the excavation, found a partially complete skeleton and some fragments that said EO something unreadable Deus Vinci. It also had a very large skull. I don't know if we thought he had a big head, literally, but they thought that was probably him. So then they took those remains and interred them somewhere else in St. Hubert. And it just says it's presumed to be Da Vinci's bones. In 2016, they started analysis on whatever they could find of skin cells in his paintings, because he uses fingers as well, to try to compare that with the DNA with his bones. Supposedly, they're trying to have that figured out by 2019 for the 500th anniversary of his death. Round 2. All right, Diana, what do you think the next degree is between Leonardo da Vinci and polytheism?
Wow. So listening to that whole article, I was just thinking, oh, okay, I can do this. And what I wrote down, it's so funny because as I'm reading it back to me, I'm just like, wings. Did we talk about chicken wings? No. No, you were talking about diagrams of the things that he did. And I'm thinking about the art. I also was looking at Last Supper and I'm like, oh, no, if I were like 1 degree away, then I could get a little bit closer. But
right.
So I am going to go back and I'm going to go forward and I'm going to say vegetarian.
Ooh, okay.
So your guess of vegetarianism is incorrect.
Oh, okay.
The next degree is paleontology.
Oh, I wrote that down. But that's okay.
So, paleontology is the scientific study of life that existed prior to or including the start of the Holocene epoch, which was like 12,000 years before the present is the end of it. So, back past that.
Ooh.
So, a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
It includes the study of fossils to determine evolution and the interaction of organisms with their environment. Observations in paleontology have been documented as far back as the 5th century BC. The science of paleontology was based on Georges Cuvier's study of comparative anatomy in the 18th century. And then in the 19th century, it took off and everybody was crazy about paleontology. It borders biology and geology, but it's different from archaeology because it doesn't include the study of modern humans or objects that were made by humans. Its interest is in the evolution of organisms, including humans.
Okay.
Techniques like biochemistry, math, and engineering help paleontologists confirm the evolutionary history of life to back all the way to almost the beginning of life on Earth, so 3.8 billion years ago.
Goodness.
And some subdivisions of paleontology include fossil research, environmental history, and ancient climates. Evidence about ancient life can be discovered through body fossils and trace fossils. Trace fossils are impressions like footprints or habitats like burrows and stuff. Dating the actual fossils is pretty hard, but sometimes it's made easier when the scientists study adjacent rocks because the rocks can be dated by radiometrics, which sounds super interesting. Not really.
Oh.
Often, though, paleontologists use relative dating by solving this sort of jigsaw puzzle kind of biostratigraphy. Yeah, that's right, biostratigraphy.
Sure.
Which is the correlating and assigning relative ages of rock strata by using the fossils inside the rocks.
Huh.
Paleontologists often create a family tree based on their use of cladistics, which is a biological classification where organisms are sorted into groups based on their most recent common ancestor. In the last 25 years of the 20th century, the use of molecular phylogenetics helped determine the relationship between organisms by measuring the similarities in their DNA. So, my interesting fact is more interesting now that I heard the Leonardo da Vinci article, because Georges Cuvier is known as the founding father of paleontology.
Oh.
Didn't you say Leonardo da Vinci is the father of paleontology? Yeah, okay. So Cuvier was a major figure in natural science research, and he is the one that established extinction as an actual fact when a bunch of his colleagues were still like, maybe kind of controversial, extinction's not real, we still have woolly mammoths, that sort of thing. He was also one of the first people to suggest that the Earth was dominated by reptiles in prehistoric time, as opposed to mammals.
Round 3.
So, Diana, based on that, what do you think the next degree is?
Well, I don't think it's... I couldn't write it down fast enough. It's biostratigraphy.
Nope, you don't think it's the word I couldn't say?
It's not the biostratigraphy. But I was just, I'm just like, okay, I don't think I can spell that. Okay, moving on. So I am just going to go with my gut and say family tree.
Okay.
Hopeful.
Your guess of family tree is incorrect.
Aww.
The next degree is jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, Nikki, you're the worst.
I know. I knew it when I was picking it. I'm like, they're going to hate me so much for this.
She went left.
It's one of those things that you're surprised that's actually linked in the article.
You never know.
So a jigsaw puzzle is a tiling puzzle. It requires assembly of weirdly shaped, interlocking, and tessellating pieces. Tessellating is like a mosaic. So not always the nice little round, plug it right into the hole kind of thing. They can be really weird shapes.
Yeah.
Every piece usually has a small part of a larger picture on it. When it's complete, it shows the entire picture. Originally, they were created by painting a picture on a flat, rectangular piece of wood, and then they cut that with a jigsaw, hence the name.
Huh.
Typical and traditional images that they use on jigsaw puzzles, nature scenes, landscapes, buildings, castles, mountains, and repetitive designs. I've even seen puzzles that are all the same color, which is just sadistic. We believe that John Spilsbury from London produced the very first jigsaw puzzle in 1760, or around then. He was an engraver and a cartographer. Early jigsaws were actually called dissections before that.
Ooh.
I know, it's creepy. They would mount maps on sheets of hardwood and then cut along the national boundaries. They were used to teach kids about countries, which I think is really cool.
It is.
Yeah.
Jigsaw puzzles got really popular during the Great Depression because they were cheap, long-lasting, and you could use them over and over again. And then they started making them more complex for adults. Some interesting facts about jigsaw puzzles. Some of them are up to 48,000 pieces.
Oh.
What?
I don't know where you'd put all of those unless they were teeny tiny.
Sure.
They also make 3D puzzles and some double-sided puzzles, so it's even harder because you don't even know what side the piece you're working with should be on.
Mm-hmm.
A typical 1,000-piece puzzle requires a press, if it's made of cardboard, that can generate upwards of 700 tons of force to push through.
Wow.
To make the design. Yeah. Now they use lasers to cut, which makes it a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
The Alzheimer's Society of Canada claims that doing jigsaw puzzles is one of the activities that can help keep your brain active and may actually reduce your risk of developing Alzheimer's.
Ooh.
So do some puzzles, people.
Yeah.
My favorite fact about jigsaw puzzles, as we know very well, the logo of Wikipedia is made out of jigsaw pieces.
Oh.
It's incomplete to show that there's always room for more knowledge.
Nice. All ties together.
Round 4. Okay, Diana,
Yes.
what do you think the next degree is between jigsaw puzzle and polytheism?
With what I heard, I'm going to say the next degree is 3D.
Your guess of 3D is incorrect. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
So the next degree is castle.
Did you say castle?
It's one of the traditional designs on puzzles, is castle. Yeah.
She's tricky. Sneaks it in there.
Whoa.
Okay. A castle is a type of fortified structure built during the Middle Ages, usually by nobility or royalty and by a military order. The scope of the word castle has been debated, but it usually refers to a private residence of a lord or a noble, and it's different from a palace because palaces aren't fortified.
Oh, okay.
It's different from a fortress because fortresses aren't always the home of royalty or nobility, so it has to be both. Castles, like in their heyday, were built over about a 900-year span, and they had a variety of different features like curtain walls and arrow slits, which is like literally like a slit in the wall for the guy to shoot an arrow through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
My favorite was always the murder hole when we saw castles in Ireland. It's just a hole where they look down when you're coming in the entrance, and they pour tar or hot oil on you.
Oh,
That's awful.
but effective.
Genius.
Effective,
Yeah,
yes.
very effective.
So castles originated in the 9th century in Europe. After the Carolingian Empire fell and territories were divided among lords and princes, they built the castles to control their area, and then the castles were used as offensive and defensive structures. In addition to the military use of the castle, they were often the center of administration for the lords and a symbol of their power. At first, they built them out of earth and timber, but later on they started adding stone to increase the defensiveness of it. In the late 12th century, they took a more scientific approach to building castles, and that led to more towers being included in the design. And they also designed it so there were more stages of defense that could all be functioning at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Defensive concepts for castle technology were taken from the Crusades and from Roman forts. They were built well into the 16th century, but the introduction of gunpowder necessitated new techniques to deal with the cannons just like coming right at them and busting their walls open. Unfortunately, making the castles better for withstanding cannon fire made them less a desirable place to live and kind of uncomfortable. So people were like, yeah, we don't want to live in a castle anymore. So they separated stuff, and so they had artillery forts and country houses. So they split the castle into two different things.
Oh.
The construction of mock castles started happening in the 18th century as part of a renewed interest in a romantic revival of Gothic architecture, obviously with no military purpose. My interesting fact about castles is about a specific castle. Windsor Castle is the royal residence in England, and it's notable for its long association with the British royal family. It was originally built in the 11th century, and since the time of Henry I has been used by the reigning monarch the entire time. It's the longest occupied palace in Europe, and it is the preferred weekend home of the current Queen Elizabeth II. It's on 13 acres of land, and as of 2006, 500 people live and work in it. And Diana, would you like to guess the square footage of Windsor Castle?
Oh my, no. Okay, well, hang on. I live in 932 square feet.
It's a little bit bigger than that. Yeah.
Oh, I'm just giving myself a point of reference. How many thousands?
484,000 square feet.
That's a lot.
It's bananas, right?
That's a lot of vacuuming.
I mean, it's like unfathomable.
Wow.
And that's my interesting information about Windsor Castle.
Uh-huh.
Round 5.
So, Diana, what do you think the next degree is?
All right. As much as I want it to be, this is going to sound weird, gunpowder, I am going to take a chance since we're so close. I'm going to say the Crusades.
Ah.
Your guess of the Crusades is correct.
What?
Nice work.
Very good, Diana. Congratulations.
Yeah.
1 point for my gut.
I actually considered gunpowder when I was doing the spiral. Awesome. Let's learn about the Crusades.
Right.
So, as you would expect, this article is very long because the Crusades was not just one or two. The first set of Crusades, there were actually 9 of them.
Oh.
And they continued on for a very long time. I'm going to tell you about little bits here and there about them. So, Crusades in general, it was a series of religious wars. They were sanctioned by the Latin Church in the medieval period, so pretty much the Catholic Church. Only the first 9 Crusades were really related to each other. They really branched off after that. They started in 1095 and went on in various incarnations through 1492. People like to fight about religion.
Do you think people just, like, argued with their neighbors and they're like, whatever, it's a crusade? They're very in right now.
The most commonly known crusades that we think of today that show up in a lot of movies were the campaigns in the Eastern Mediterranean.
Mm-hmm.
They were aimed at recovering the Holy Land from Muslim rule.
And don't forget the last one that Indiana Jones did.
That's a big one.
Of course.
Yes.
That's a very important one. They were fought for lots of reasons around religion, including the suppression of paganism and heresy, the resolution of conflict among rival Roman Catholic groups, and for political and territorial advantage. The first one was started in 1095 by Pope Urban II.
Did you say Pope Urban?
Yep, Urban.
Ah.
Like Carl Urban.
I was going to ask!
But not Australian. I'm sure they're related.
I'm sure.
Oh my.
That's a whole different spiral.
Oh. Wow.
So, Pope Urban tried to get military support for the Byzantine Empire. So one of the main reasons for the First Crusade was to guarantee pilgrims access to the holy sites. But some historians think that Pope Urban's primary objective was to unite the eastern and western branches of Christendom, which would make him the head of the unified church. So pretty important.
Sneaky.
There was actually, he was a pope and there was an anti-pope at the same time.
What?
Which is a fantastic title. I know. The Catholic Church and the Holy Roman Empire weren't together yet.
Oh.
Yeah. So there was a 2-century attempt. So obviously, after he died, it continued to try to get the Holy Land. It failed, as you would expect. There was a guy named Peter the Hermit who led thousands of poor Christians out of Europe in what came to be called the People's Crusade. He said that he had a letter from heaven telling Christians to prepare for an imminent apocalypse by seizing Jerusalem. In order to do that, they went to Germany and massacred Jewish people.
Aww.
It was pretty terrible. One of the weird things that happened during the Crusades, there was an 8-month siege of Antioch. It lasted this long because the residents didn't have enough resources to repel the invaders, and the invaders didn't have enough resources to totally take over the city. So they just kept going. Eventually, one of the guys in charge managed to persuade a tower guard to open a city gate and let the Crusaders in.
Wow.
Where they then massacred the Muslims and Christian Greeks and Syrian and Armenian inhabitants. They just killed everybody.
Wow.
Well, as much as I don't want to chime in with a fun fact after that comment. Did you say Antioch?
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's weird because that's where I was born and raised.
That is a fun fact.
Antioch, California, though.
Mm-hmm. Probably not the same place. One of the results of the Crusades, the Fourth Crusade in particular, was the sacking of Constantinople, which pretty much ended the whole East-West connection thing they were trying to do. It also led to the fall of the Byzantine Empire to the Ottomans. So a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Interesting fact about the Crusades. The word crusade didn't actually exist at the time of all the Crusades. They called it journey or pilgrimage. They didn't use that as a descriptive term until 1760.
I think some movies have gotten that incorrect because I've heard plenty of them say Crusades during the Crusades.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like
Robin Hood.
Yeah, Robin Hood. That's exactly what I was thinking. Not just Robin Hood, the Kevin Costner Robin Hood, but also Robin Hood, the Disney Hot Fox Robin Hood.
Yeah, Hot Fox.
Yeah, the Hot Fox. I'm pretty sure the King Lion in that one also went on a crusade.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yes.
Oh, you're right. I loved that movie. I remember because the snake hypnotized him to go off on that quote,
that's right.
crazy crusade.
So, for me, the weirdest thing about the Crusades, which was a big surprise, was that, as you'd expect, they were a big deal to Catholics. They hardly even registered in history books in the Islamic world.
Oh.
The Muslim world was so used to Byzantine mercenaries coming in that they just thought they were more rather than religiously motivated warriors.
Oh.
There weren't histories of the Crusades translated into Arabic until 1865. Round 6. Diana, this is the last guess you've got.
Okay.
What do you think the next degree is between Crusades and polytheism?
I'm going to, first off, take this opportunity to read the greatest words you said in the last article.
Okay.
Imminent apocalypse. That sounded amazing. But I am going to go back to my gut and go with paganism.
All right, Diana, your guess of paganism is correct again.
Dun, 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 dun.
Awesome.
You're very good at this.
2 for 6. That is very good.
I did it.
I feel like maybe I'm dumber than I thought because I never do this well.
I was just crossing my fingers. Get one. Get one.
All right, so let's hear about paganism. Paganism is a term from the 4th century. The notion of paganism was created by the early Christian church. It was used by those early Christians to describe people that were in the Roman Empire that practiced polytheism, which is the belief in more than one god. The term pagan implied inferiority, and was thought to be the religion of the peasantry, and it was definitely used as a derogatory term.
Oh.
During and after the Middle Ages, paganism was a term applied to non-Abrahamic, and it was presumed to be a belief in false gods. Not just that they believed in more than one god, but all the gods they believed in were wrong.
Oh.
In the 19th century, the term was adopted by members of various artistic groups that were inspired by the ancient world. And then in the 20th century, it was applied as a self-description of practitioners of modern paganism or the neo-pagan movement. And they incorporated ideas into their practice like nature worship and that kind of thing.
Ooh.
Our current knowledge of the old pagan religion comes from anthropological field research records, archaeological artifacts, and historical accounts from ancient writers. Most pagan religions are some type of polytheistic, but there are some pagan religions that are monotheistic, which is the belief in one god.
Mm-hmm.
Some examples of modern paganism include the Roman polytheistic Reconstructionalism, Hellenism, the Slavic native faith, the Celtic Reconstructionalist paganism or heathenry, Wicca, and Neo-Druidism. And all of these have a distinct separation from each other, and their differences can include which calendar they use, which holidays they observe, and their concept of magic. Here's an interesting fact. Heathenry is a religion.
Oh!
What?
Yes. Heathenry is considered a new religious movement, and practitioners model their faith in a pre-Christian belief system from the Germanic people of the Iron Age and early medieval Europe. Practitioners revive the past beliefs by using historical source materials like texts from the Old Norse, from Scandinavia and Iceland, and their deities include Odin, Frigg, Freya, and Thor. A symbol worn by heathens is the Mjolnir.
Is the what?
Mjolnir. It's Thor's hammer.
I can't pronounce that either.
Where I was going.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can.
Mjolnir. So some of the people that practice heathenry wear the hammer as a symbol of their faith. And that leads us to our last degree.
Polytheism.
Polytheism.
It is the worship or belief in multiple deities or gods. Usually these gods are assembled in some sort of pantheon of gods and goddesses. They have their own religions and rituals. There are lots of deities from ancient religions. Most of the polytheistic deities of ancient religions, with the exception of ancient Egyptian and Hindu deities, were considered to have physical bodies. Polytheists don't always worship all the gods equally. Sometimes there are minor gods, major gods. They can be henotheists, which is specializing in the worship of one particular deity. You can also be a kathenotheist, which is when you worship different gods at different times, like different seasons, things like that. Polytheism was the typical type of religion during the Bronze Age and Iron Age, up to the Axial Age. There's a lot of the same information in this article as the paganism article. So also, a pantheon of gods was not static. Sometimes they grew over time in different civilizations. Sometimes deities that were first worshipped as patrons of cities or certain places came together to be collected as empires extended over much larger territories. Sometimes groups would take over different places and absorb their gods, like the Romans, who pretty much stole all their religion from the Greeks and Etruscans. One interesting fact about polytheism, it is sometimes claimed that Christianity isn't actually monotheistic because they teach the Trinity.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the three versions of God. And some people say that's really three different gods.
But it's not, though. I mean, I disagree with that.
It depends on your particular flavor of Christianity.
Well, as someone who was raised Catholic, though non-practicing now, I disagree with that.
Wait. Did I just start talking? Because my exact thoughts just came out.
Are you me?
Wait, I'll chime in now. As someone who was raised Catholic, I was thinking, like, that Trinity thing was always really, it's just one.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've made it through all 6 degrees. We went from Leonardo da Vinci to paleontology to jigsaw puzzle to castle to crusades to paganism to polytheism. Diana, what did you think of the spiral? Any favorite facts?
Oh, so great. Favorite fact. Oh, man, you're going to make me pick. I was too busy focusing on I wrote down cardboard. This was just kind of going all in all these different directions. No, I thought it was pretty interesting. No, but I like the spirals and the twists and turns, and you guys got me good.
You did a really good job.
You did, yeah.
Oh, no, like I say, play at home, enjoy it, and it's just so much fun to listen to.
It's time for Cheek of the Week. Because Diana is our lovely guest this week, she has chosen the Cheek of the Week. Diana?
Yeah, so I chose Two Cats Podcast. And it is this great new podcast that I discovered. It's two cats, Duchess and Princess. And I think Princess would be upset if I said that because she's the one who introduces the podcast. And, well, I don't even want to get too far into it. It is adorable. And I think I've already chosen my favorite. But again, that's not entirely fair. I'm going to let you decide which one of the two cats you like better. But they talk about, like, catnip. I think their last episode was a joke off. And they went on the Catternet and they traded. It was a little game back and forth. And it just.
Did you say Catternet?
I didn't say Catternet. They said Catternet. And I think it's fantastic, and I think you should check it out. Two Cats Podcast.
That sounds amazing.
It does. Well, Diana, thank you so much for joining us for this podcast. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, it was so great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm very happy to have been your first guest.
So everyone listen to Diana's Happily Ever Aftermath podcast and Two Cats podcast.
And any other podcast that you find with the hashtag LadyPodSquad. That's our episode. Tune in next time for another 6 Degrees of Wiki. You can keep up with us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6 Degrees of Wiki.
If you enjoyed this podcast, you can support the show by leaving a review, buying 6 Degrees of Wiki merch like t-shirts, mugs, and bags, or even by donating directly to the show at 6degreesofwiki.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.